Hi, my name is Rich Schmidt. I'm here with Margie Bergan. We're in the Nicholson Library at Linfield College. It's March 3rd, 2020. Thanks so much for joining us today, Margie. We appreciate this.
You're welcome.
Tell us a little bit about your background before you came to Linfield. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lake Grove and went to Wesleyan High School. My mother was determined I was going to go to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go, so I had a very good friend that was going to come to Linfield, and so I came with her.
Why was it so important to your mother that you go to college?
Because she just felt like.
What were your first impressions of Linfield and of McMinnville when you got out here?
Well, I can't really. I think it was a new experience, and I know the very first time we went into the Commons, there was 3 of us that came from Wesleyan, and we sort of looked around, wide-eyed freshmen, and didn't know what to do. There's so many, people. But we settled in, and it was, a fun time.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about what you studied. What did you major in?
I was majoring in home economics education.
Were there any favorite classes or professors as you look back? Any memorable educational experiences?
No, I always liked school. And I guess the one that I didn't really care for was maybe psychology or something like that. We had to take some sort of a class like that.
Tell me about extracurricular. What else was going on campus? What did you do for fun?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Just did go to the games and such. I don't know, hung out.
Do you have any favorite? You mentioned enjoying school and having fun here. Do you have any favorite memories of your time at Linfield as a student? Is there anything that stands out in your memory?
Not in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about what was it like being a woman in college at that time? Were there a lot of women on campus?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Did it feel like, in terms of majors, did it feel like most of them were in certain majors, or were there women kind of scattered throughout the different departments?
I think they were fairly scattered, as I recall.
How did you meet Marty?
Well, he was, let's see, I came in 1950, fall of 50, and he left in January then. So I think I knew who he was, but I didn't know him at all. Mm-hmm. And then I, middle of my sophomore year, I transferred up to Lewis and Clark. And I was down here visiting a roommate, or a friend. I was trying to think if it was that year or what. He was home on leave and visiting, and we all hung out at the Pop Shop. You know about Pop Shop. And I guess he found out that I was living in the Portland area, and he was home on leave, and so he called up, or maybe we set up a date then or something, I don't know. And I gave him all the wrong instructions how to get there, but he managed. And I guess the rest is sort of history.
But it seems to have worked out pretty well for you.
Yeah, 66 plus years.
Tell me about, obviously you mentioned he traveled quite a bit as part of it. Tell me about traveling with him after you were married.
Well, actually, no, he did not.
Oh.
We went, when he got home from Korea, we got married, and he got home and I can't remember dates, but anyway, he had a commitment, mm-hmm. the rest of his commitment, so he had to go to, first we went to Selma, Alabama for a few months while he got instructed how to be an instructor, and then we went to Bryan, Texas for maybe a year and a half, and then he was discharged from the active duty in May of '55, and we came home. Before we came home, he had joined the Air National Guard. So when we came home, he was immediately in the Air National Guard, and then he spent his career in the Guard as either part-time or full-time.
So when you say home, you mean came back to McMinnville?
Portland.
Oh, back to Portland. Okay. So how did he end up back at Linfield then after that in the 1956 season, or 55 and 56?
Oh, we got home in the summer, or I got home in May of '55. Yes, that's right. Then he just came down, started school in the fall. Yeah, I guess when they moved us up here, they brought the furniture to here. That's kind of a little bit. I'm not sure just how that worked out, but yes, we came back to McMinnville, I guess is what.
So he'd already been in the service at that point, and now he's back in McMinnville with one more year of undergraduate college.
Right.
And played football in 1955. Do you remember?
Yes.
So I know it's a lot of dates in here. So I'm curious if you remember how he decided that he was going to go back to Linfield and play football that year.
It was a given. I mean, he just knew when he left that he was going to finish. He wanted to be a coach. He wanted to fly more than anything. That's why he joined the Air Force. He found out that he was going to be drafted, and so he was home on Christmas break. He went down and joined the Air Force, because he knew he wanted to fly. He grew up in Park Rose. They had a little farm which was now part of the airport, or National Guard unit, I guess, air base. And it just was something he was always going to do. But then when he knew he was going to get out, because he just knew. He had opportunity to, do airlines and all that, but he wanted to come back and finish school. So.
And then after he finished, he went and got his master's degree
Yes.
and coached. So tell me a little bit about was that also kind of a given decision, or what was he thinking at that point?
Yeah, he was in the Guard this whole time, flying part-time. Even down here, when we were down here, he's flying weekends. I don't think he was flying nights then, but he was going to be a teacher coach, and he got his first job at Franklin High School, compliments of Paul Durham. And let's see, I can't remember who was there, but someone a little bit older that probably coached Durham is there, and so they at Franklin. So he went in and had an interview, and then we moved. After he graduated, we moved to Portland.
When he was in between that, when he was here for the '56 season as a graduate assistant coach, do you remember anything about his experiences then working with Paul Durham at that point? It was a long time, I know. But.
No, I really don't, because as I said, I was home with a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old, and
you were preoccupied, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I know. We lived in. Have you ever seen pictures of the GI housing? That we lived right across from the stadium, and sometimes during a game or something, I might run across and see what was going on. And couldn't, had to get the kids to bed and all that. So I really don't know. I can't remember.
I'm curious about. It's such a foreign experience for students today to think about being married and having kids while they're here at Linfield. I'm curious. It was fairly common at the time with the GIs and being fairly older students. What was the experience like being a married mother on a college campus at that point, and having school and everything else, and football and everything else that was going on?
Well, of course, I wasn't at school, and I don't know. We had our we lived over there in the barracks, and they were, families. There weren't, Yoga Umbarger was down in the same place we were. I don't think there was too many students that were married at that time.
Did you find yourself kind of with other older married couples? Did you find yourself kind of bonding with them or spending time with them?
Some, but not really. Marty was, here again, small children, and Marty was busy with coaching and schooling, and probably some of the older guys that he knew beforehand. But then he was still, as I say, he was still flying in the Guard. So that took up a lot of spare time.
So tell me about, you mentioned first job was up at Franklin coming out of
Yes.
that, so and moving to Portland. So tell me about that, his experience as a coach post Linfield.
He really enjoyed it. He coached, he was always, baseball was his thing, but he coached football, or assisted in football. He was head wrestling coach, and he really enjoyed it, but he never coached baseball, and I think he would have liked to. But that was also a lot of fun. We were, let's see, there was there was Linfield people there. Names you probably don't know. Art Verment, Marv Flitcroft came a little later. I can't think of others, but
Were there other Linfield alums that you stayed close with after graduation?
well, Danny Moreland and Bert Johnson. Bert Johnson and Marty grew up together, and they were roommates when they came down here. So we sort of did with them, but as your life transitions, we did things with teachers or coaches, and the Guard.
So take me on the kind of your journey after first job in Franklin. I know you end up back here in McMinnville. Take me on the kind of the journey, the career journey after, after that.
He taught and coached at Franklin for, I think it was 10 years. And then there was transitions and everything at the Guard, and he had the opportunity to go to work at the Guard full time. And so he opted to do that. And so he retired from Franklin and was out at the Guard full time. He was either working, dependent on what he was doing. Sometimes he was active duty, and sometimes he was civil service. So he retired active duty and civil service. So we have, and then our life revolved around people from the air base. That was just, they're a different breed of, I don't know if you know anything about fighter pilots, but they're a different breed, and very close.
And was that still in the Portland area?
The Air National Guard of Portland.
Okay. And so what point did you move back to McMinnville?
Well, let me see. Oh, he had a couple of years till he was eligible to retire, and there was a position that opened up in Klamath Falls to be a detachment commander down there. And so we went down to Klamath Falls and finished out his career down there at Kingsley Field. They had a alert detachment, which is, they had 2 planes out of Portland, and they would come down there and sit on alert, 24-hour alert, 5 minutes, wheels up. So they had, so he was the alert detachment down there, and while he was there, anyway, they decided it would be of course, they took over from the Air Force. And they decided that it would be a good training area and it's just mushroomed since then. It's grown huge with the training that they do down there, because it's perfect weather and wide open spaces. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so after he retired,
Then he retired, and we stayed down at Klamath Falls for, I think, maybe 4 more years or something like that. Very good friends with Ginger and Howard. Did stuff with OIT fundraisers and such. And Margie missed the rain. So eventually we came back up to Port. We had a home in Happy Valley, which we kept when we went down to Klamath Falls. And so we still had that. We had to do something. We'd rented it out, and we needed to come back and live in it for a while, which we did. And in the meantime, Mar Flitcroft passed away, and so this is a roundabout way. And his service was in Newburgh. So while we went to the service, and just let's wander down and see what's going on at Linfield. And it was a gorgeous day, and we wandered around and he saw the golf course and decided that was a pretty nice place to live. So we eventually came down because of golf.
And that was because of Michael Book, because of the country club. But he also ended up coaching golf. So tell me how that ended up happening.
Well, as you know how things go, Carnahan was talking to him once and said, "Hey, Marty, how would you like to coach women's golf?" And I was surprised. He said, "Well, yeah." So, so he took over, and he enjoyed that. Well, you mostly enjoyed that.
Tell me about coming back to Linfield after those many years. What had changed? What was different about the campus from what you remembered?
Oh. Well, when we first got here, it wasn't so much, but then it really mushroomed and really grew. I have some pictures of Bert and Denny and Marty. They lived in Mac Hall. They were the roommates, room 34. Anyway, they have a picture when they were freshmen out behind Mac Hall. So we had 50 years. We took another picture of them. Same place, and of course the trees have grown, but it's still more or less the same.
A few more buildings back there, maybe.
And those rat-infested barriers were gone. They were bad.
I'm curious if this may not be a question you can answer, but as an alum, did Marty closely follow Linfield sports as you were out and about? I mean, before he came back to McMinnville, did he stay pretty closely tied?
I don't think you'd say he might have followed them some, but not closely.
Do you know how he was part of the beginning of the streak. Do you know at what point he might have become aware of that and caring about it? Do you have any recollection of that?
No, I don't have any recollection. Okay. He always cared about his time at Linfield and playing football and all of that. And of course, with being close to Howard, he was following OIT football while we were down there, going to all their games and everything. So.
I'm curious now, as you look at Linfield today, do you have any sort of hopes for the future here? Any thoughts on where Linfield is going?
Well, it seems to me like it's going in a good direction. Of course, I'm kind of hoping it doesn't grow too much, but I think our current president is doing a fine job, from what I can see.
I don't think you have to worry about it growing too much. It seems to be a common concern, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, I don't either.
Do you have anything you want to ask, Matt?
I was going to ask, I'm curious if you had any opportunities to interact with any of the other assistant coaches that Marty coached with. If you recall them coming over for dinner, maybe with UB Dye, Al Willis.
Well, of course, Al Wills is gone now, I think. And they weren't, but Dewey Dye, they lived across the hall from us in the, I guess, GI housing or whatever. I don't know whatever happened to him, though. I don't know. Once we left, or they left before we did, and I don't have any idea what happened to him. I don't think they were from the Longview area. They might have been.
What was Paul Durham like?
I don't, the main thing, this is really silly. The main thing I remember about the Durhams is we'd go over there once in a while, but she'd have a bunch of old socks the kids outgrew or whatever. And anyway, she'd give Marty their old socks. So, you know, we're poor college students. We didn't have that's stupid. I've been thinking since I talked with you, and I just can come up with some funny little recollections of. Was Frank Speyer on the football team? Oh, I can remember one thing. Because we lived in these barracks and kitchen, but we had a television. No, nobody had televisions. There was a big prize fight until Marty had it on and everything, and I happened to look out the kitchen window, and here's all these guys over in Memorial, and some of them had binoculars and something, and they were trying to watch the prize fight. So I went to the door and says, "Come on over." By the time they got over, the fight was over. So what they could have seen, they missed.
I don't see a Frank Speyer on either of these rosters.
You don't.
Not to say that he wasn't, as I'm learning that.
Well, I know he lived in Memorial.
Okay.
Because he used to come over and ask if he could take our oldest daughter, and they'd go down and get ice cream home. Well, I don't know what happened to him either.
You talked about Coach Lever a little bit before we started talking on camera, and also Roy Helzer. I'm just curious if you have any memories of either Lever or Helzer that you can recall.
Well, my experience with Henry Lever was after school, and not too long after school, because Marty's two brothers went to Linfield. Mm-hmm. There was 3 Bergan boys on the baseball team at one point. And Marty and John and I guess, went over to Madras, and we didn't stay with Lever, but we stayed, well, I guess John had a girlfriend that was in. Anyway, we went to Lever's house, and they were able to go hunting on his property. And once in a while, we'd stop in, and Marty'd want to say hi to him when we might be passing through. Paul Durham, I don't really remember that much. Roy Helzer, they had a place down the coast, and we'd drive down there once in a while and stop in and say hi. They were after we moved back to McMinnville. We decided the first year we were here that we would have, and after the first home football game, we would have an open house. Mm-hmm. And of course, Dorothy and we always invited them, and Milo Wolb came for a couple of years. But anyway, we had our annual open house for 21 years of that era, and pretty much whoever wanted to come. And that was a lot of fun.
It's a good way to stay in touch with folks from that era.
Well, for some reason, the guys in that era were pretty close. And they still are, those that are around. And they still get together before or after football games or at Michael Book. And I don't know, it was just a close group. Not all athletes, just friends.
You were telling me before the interview started about your interesting bit of Roy Helzer trivia. I wonder if you'd share that again, at least according to Roy's wife, about what you were telling.
Oh, well, I remember that, I don't know, talking with Dorothy off and on, and she said that they were the first couple students to be married at well, they were still attending Linfield.
It's a pretty great story.
Well, I'm sorry that she's not around to tell you.
Did Marty ever share what it was about Linfield or why he enrolled at Linfield coming out of Parkrose High School?
Yes, his wrestling coach went to Linfield. Marion Dooley. Yeah.
I'm finding that to be a common thread, is that high school coaches almost drove them to campus and said, "You're going here."
Especially for the people who wanted to be coaches themselves. Those seems like a lot of.
I don't know what Marty would have done if he didn't come to Linfield, but Marion Dooley got him down here. So I don't really know what he had in mind.
How did he end up being, if you remember, did he ever share how he kind of ended up being a graduate assistant? Was he looking to be a coach here at Linfield, or was it?
He wanted to be a coach. He was playing football, of course, that other year, and I think it was just, you know, Durham was coaching, and they did that. They had graduate assistants.
Still do.
Yeah. I can't remember. They must have paid him something. I don't remember.
It wasn't much.
It wasn't, well, we didn't pay much for that. I think we had to pay $25 a month rent for where we lived.
The funny thing is, in these little press brochures, the entire athletic department budget for all athletic teams was $10,000 in 1956.
Well, that was a lot of money back then.
Just probably, they probably didn't get much of that. My point being,
No,
given
no.
the travel, you know.
Well, I think our GI Bill was like maybe 200 or something like that. It wasn't much.
Good.
I think so.
Okay. That's all the questions that I have for you today. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Any other memories
Well,
that kind of come to mind?
I can't, and I wish I could. Maybe in the middle of the night sometime I'll think of something that might have been worth it.
Well, you did great, and it's wonderful stories that you shared with us today, and thank you for taking the time. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.